Alarm outside headquarters of Silicon Valley Bank in Santa Clara, California today.
They just came out and told us that the bank is shut down.
SVB, the 16th largest bank in the U.S. with $175 billion in deposits, is now the biggest American bank to fail since the 2008 financial crisis. Its customers are primarily businesses and investors in the tech sector.
The root cause of the failure here was a sudden and significant increase in interest rates, which, that part of the job of a bank is to manage interest rate risk, and that didn't happen here.
Earlier this week, SVB disclosed it took a loss on the sale of bonds due to rising interest rates and announced it would sell shares to shore up its balance sheet. Its stock price plunged and customers rushed to take their money out. The FDIC now stepping in, telling customers they will be able to access funds by Monday, but the guaranteed amount per depositor, $250,000.
A heart-stopping moment of this bank is done.
Ashley Trenier is the CEO of healthcare startup Farmbox RX. Unable to access her money today, she fears she could be out more than $10 million.
$250,000 isn't a ton of money to us when you're talking of 8 figures that's in the bank currently.
Concern over today's collapse of SVB drove Wall Street lower. The banking sector alone down more than 4%. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen.
There are recent developments that concern a few banks that I'm monitoring very carefully.
The immediate concern? The cash-burning startups who have millions in SVB and may not be able to access the money they need to pay bills or make payroll.
Tonight, this developing story, people worried about their money, and for good reason. Financial regulators shut down New York-based Signature Bank in a move designed to slow down a banking crisis 2 days after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in California. Tonight, some analysts fear this is just the beginning.
Another bank bites the dust, and tonight fears are mounting. How many others are teetering on the brink of bankruptcy? Signature Bank is a big cryptocurrency lender in New York. On Sunday, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, took over its assets worth more than $110 billion and more than $88 billion in deposits. Signature is now the 3rd largest bank to fall into financial failure in U.S. history. On Friday, the 2nd largest bank to go belly up sent shockwaves from California. Silicon Valley Bank, which catered to the tech industry, started selling assets last Wednesday to balance its books. Instead, panic took over as customers and investors demanded their money. The FDIC had to step in to contain the fire.
The best outcome will be, can they find a buyer for this SVB bank today before the markets open in Asia later in the day?
Silicon Valley Bank may be the first domino to fall. Clearly, it's not the last.
Story this morning, the federal government is stepping in following the failure of 2 U.S. banks. California's Silicon Valley Bank failed on Friday, and then on Sunday, New York state regulators closed Signature Bank, which worked extensively with crypto.
People are worried about their money, and for good reason. To answer your question, as of this morning, we have learned that the federal government has rolled out a plan that will allow customers to access their accounts despite the fact that these 2 banks are now closed. But all of this comes as regulators scramble to figure out what went wrong.
2 banks that did business with the crypto sector and tech startups all collapsed in less than a week. This time, it's Signature Bank, citing systemic risk. The company told us no comment when asked about what happened.
The Federal Reserve, the FDIC, and the Treasury step in and provide assurance that things like uninsured deposits will be available to depositors on Monday morning is to prevent more of these. That was really the real risk, is that uninsured depositors at any bank could start stampeding to their bank to take money out.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Signature was reeling from a bet on crypto banking. Sunday morning, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen addressed the FDIC seizing control of California-based Silicon Valley Bank on Friday. It's the 2nd largest bank collapse in U.S. history and is already affecting the tech businesses it financed, including Roblox, Etsy, and Roku. It sparked alarm about reverberations amid rising interest rates.
I've been working all weekend with our banking regulators to design appropriate policies to address this situation. The American banking system is really safe and well capitalized. It's resilient.
The Treasury Secretary ruled out a bailout for Silicon Valley Bank. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy and New York City Mayor Eric Adams responded to the Fed's announcement to make customers whole with SVB.
Our Economic Development Authority is preparing a package largely focused on liquidity to be there in case we need to be there.
There's a real concern, particularly because in New York, we have such a substantial number of tech startups. We are going to have a coordination with the federal government, the state, as well as here in the city to be a conduit of information.
So why do federal regulators think that their response to the Silicon Valley Bank failure is enough to prevent a run on banks today?
Yeah, so guys, a run on banks usually happens when a huge group of customers pull out their money because they're not confident the bank will be able to repay their debts or give them their money back. Federal regulators here, starting with this new bank term funding program and these other quick actions, are hoping to show that, more banks won't go under despite some of these concerns here. They're trying to show that their dollars are safe, and it looks like so far that might have worked. Back to you.
And Jared, how is Wall Street responding to the Treasury's decision to cover deposits even beyond the FDIC maximum?
Yeah, so we're actually seeing this morning that stock futures are up, that it looks like things will be going well. It seems like investors were reassured by the actions to limit the fallout of SVB's collapse.
And Jared, real quickly before we let you go, is there a chance this latest round of bank failures could lead to new regulations?
I mean, it's a conversation that's been really starting on Capitol Hill, in particular amongst Democrats. In his statement from last night, you had President Biden promising to, quote, strengthen oversight and regulation of larger banks so that we're not in this position again. Some critics are pointing to Trump-era policies that rolled back oversight for banks with less than $250 billion in assets, which included both SVB as well as Signature. So it's something that's coming up right now. But the question is going to be whether Democrats and Republicans can get behind anything to actually change some of those regulations.